I was 19 the first time I realized how loud silence could get inside a parked car. Not highway silence, not city silence either. I mean that strange kind of silence you only hear out in the middle of nowhere, where the trees absorb everything. Even your breathing starts sounding wrong. This happened in October of 2004, northern Pennsylvania, somewhere off Route 6. I remember because the radio kept talking about the Yankees losing the playoffs while rain tapped softly against the windshield of my boyfriend's Chevy Impala like fingertips. Tiny little taps, constant nervous. Back then, Jason worked night shifts at a warehouse outside Scranton. 12-hour shifts loading trucks. He always smelled faintly like cardboard dust and diesel fuel after work. That night was no different. We weren't supposed to be out that late. I had class the next morning. My mom had already called 3 times asking where I was. Jason was exhausted. The heater in his car barely worked, and honestly, we were fighting more than talking by that point. But neither of us wanted to go home yet, so we drove. That's what people did back then when they didn't know what else to do with themselves. You drove until the world got quiet enough to ignore your own thoughts. Jason pulled into this overlook near the woods. Just a gravel turnout facing a dead stretch of trees and power lines. Teenagers used it all the time to drink beer or hook up or smoke weed without getting caught. There was nobody there that night. No headlights, no music, no other cars, just us. And the rain. The engine clicked softly as it cooled. Dutic, dutic. I remember wiping fog off the passenger window with my sleeve and staring out at the trees. They looked wrong somehow, too still, like the woods were holding their breath. "You okay?" Jason asked. I shrugged. "I'm fine," but I wasn't. I'd had this weird feeling all evening, that kind of pressure in your stomach that doesn't feel emotional at first, just physical. Like your body notices something before your brain does. Jason turned the radio down lower. An old AM station crackled through static baseball talk, weather warnings, somebody advertising discount tires. Then the signal warped for a second. A burst of static filled the car so loudly I jumped. Jason laughed a little. "Relax. I hate that sound. You hate everything tonight." That annoyed me more than it should. I crossed my arms and stared out the windshield again. The rain had gotten lighter by then, barely a drizzle. Thin streams of water crawled slowly down the glass, bending the distant lights into blurry streaks. And that's when I noticed something, movement, far back near the tree line. I squinted. At first I thought it was just one of the wooden posts near the overlook. The rain distorted everything. But then the shape moved slightly sideways, not walking, just shifting, like somebody adjusting their stance. Jason. There's someone out there. He looked up lazily. Where? Near the trees. He leaned forward, peering through the windshield for maybe 2 seconds before shaking his head. I don't see anything. No, seriously. It's probably a deer. I kept staring. The shape didn't move again. Maybe he was right. Maybe my eyes were messing with me. I almost convinced myself of that too. Then the radio interrupted again. The static returned first, followed by a different voice, not the baseball guy. This one sounded older, tense. State police advising residents to avoid isolated areas tonight, following reports of an escaped patient from Stana Psychiatric Facility approximately 40 miles east of. Jason groaned immediately. Oh my god, they still use those old horror movie warnings. Turn it up. Male suspect considered dangerous. Last seen wearing dark clothing. Residents are advised not to approach under any circumstances. Jason switched stations. During music flooded the car instead. I looked at him. Why would you turn it? Because it's creepy. You literally just made fun of me for being nervous. Yeah, well, congratulations. Now I'm nervous too. He smiled after saying it, but it felt forced small. Like he regretted parking there all of a sudden. The rain stopped completely. And somehow that made everything worse. No sound anymore. No tapping. No wind. Nothing. Just that huge dead silence pressing against the windows. Jason reached for a bag of fries between the seats. Cold by then. He made a face after eating one. These are disgusting. You still ate it. Yeah, that's depression. I laughed a little, just enough to relax. That's important to remember, because people always think moments before something bad happens feel dramatic. They don't. Most of the time you're doing something stupid. Talking about fries, half checking your phone, thinking about work tomorrow. Normal things. That's why your brain doesn't react fast enough when danger finally shows up. Jason suddenly frowned. You hear that? I froze. Hear what? He muted the radio. For a second, nothing then. A tiny metallic sound soft. It was somewhere outside the car. I felt my chest tighten immediately. Jason looked toward the driver's side window. Kinda sounded like somebody hit the car. Can we leave? He gave a small nervous laugh. You seriously think the escaped psycho from the radio found us in the middle of nowhere? I don't know. Again, this time closer, metal scraping lightly against metal. Very slow, very careful. Neither of us moved. I remember hearing Jason swallow, actually hearing it. That's how quiet it had become. Then something brushed softly against the rear windshield. Not a hit, not a bang. More like fingertips, dragging slowly across wet glass. Jason turned toward me for the first time all night. He looked genuinely afraid. And somewhere beyond the fogged-up back window, something moved, very slowly, too tall, too close. I still think about the sound that came next. Not footsteps, not breathing, just the faint scrape of metal circling the car, like someone tracing the edge of the doors with something sharp. And then, the passenger side handle moved slightly, just once. Click. Jason locked the doors immediately. Click. Too fast, too hard. Like his hands already knew something his mouth didn't want to admit yet. Neither of us spoke. The fog on the windows had thickened now, turning the outside world into pale gray smears and shifting shadows. I could barely make out the trees anymore, just long black shapes standing motionless beyond the rain-dark gravel. Then, that scraping sound again, slowly moving along the passenger side, metal against metal, not loud, careful, like whoever was outside didn't want to scare us too early. Jason forced out a laugh that sounded completely dead inside. Probably some idiot messing with us. I looked at him. You don't believe that. He didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the side mirror. I could hear the tiny electric hum coming from the dashboard lights. The old Chevy's heater rattled weakly under my feet, blowing air that smelled faintly like dust and burnt plastic. Everything inside the car suddenly felt too small, too warm, too human. And whatever was outside of it wasn't. Jason reached for the ignition. The engine coughed once, then died. My stomach dropped instantly. No, he tried again. The starter whined nothing. Again, dead Jason. I'm trying. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. That scared me more than the sound outside. Because Jason wasn't the nervous type. He was one of those guys who laughed during horror movies and walked into gas stations at 3 a.m. like nothing in the world could touch him. But right then, his hands were shaking. Keyed. Now the sound was behind us again, circling slow like it was studying the car. I grabbed my phone. 1 bar of signal. Then none, of course. Try yours, I whispered. Jason checked his phone. No service. The silence after that sentence felt enormous. I don't know why people whisper during moments like that. Maybe because deep down, your brain starts treating danger like an animal. Something that can hear you if you get too loud. Jason finally looked at me. You saw someone, right? I nodded slowly, near the trees. What did they look like? I don't know. You don't know? It was dark. Another pause. Then, something landed softly on the roof of the car. Both of us jumped so violently the entire vehicle shook. Oh my God, I gasped. Jason stared upward instinctively, barred idea. That's another thing fear does to people. It makes you look exactly where you shouldn't. We heard it then. A slow shifting weight above us. Creak. Metal groaned softly under pressure. Something was on top of the car, not moving much, just enough for the roof to bend slightly every few seconds. Jason whispered, "What the hell?" I covered my mouth without realizing it. The roof creaked again and then stopped. No movement, nothing, just silence pressing down from above. I remember staring at the ceiling fabric of the Impala and imagining a face directly over ours, inches away listening. The air inside the car suddenly smelled wrong. Wet earth, rust, something damp and cold. Jason slowly reached for the gear shift. "I'm getting us out of here. Go." He turned the key again. The engine struggled for one horrible second. It almost caught, then died again. And right after that, something hit the driver's side window, bang. Not hard enough to break it, just enough to make us scream. Jason jerked backward. I turned instinctively toward the glass and saw nothing, only my own reflection. Wide eyes, fogged breath, darkness behind me. But there was something else too, a shape, standing farther back now near the rear of the car. Tall, very tall, the posture looked wrong somehow. Slightly tilted, one shoulder lower than the other, and dangling from one arm, something thin, curved, metallic. The parking lights from the overlook barely touched it, but I saw enough. A hook. My entire body went cold. Jason. He followed my stare. For the first time since I'd known him, Abby watched all the color leave his face. The figure didn't move, didn't rush us, didn't wave. It just stood there beside the trees with that strange, tilted posture, almost blending into the darkness, watching like it had all the time in the world. Then the radio exploded with static again. Both of us flinched violently. The voice returned. Authorities warned the suspect may be armed with a sharpened metal prosthetic following injuries sustained during. Jason slammed the radio off completely. The sudden silence afterward felt even worse. I realized something then. The figure near the trees was gone. I grabbed Jason's arm instantly. Where did he go? What? He was right there. Jason looked through the windshield desperately. Nothing. The gravel turnout was empty again. No movement, no sound, no shape near the woods. And somehow, that was infinitely more terrifying, because now we didn't know where he was. The windows had fogged so badly we could barely see 5 feet outside the car anymore. Jason wiped the driver's side glass with his sleeve repeatedly. "Come on, come on." I suddenly heard breathing, very soft, very close. At first I thought it was Jason. Then I realized his breathing was uneven and fast beside me. This sound was different, slow, controlled, right outside the passenger door. I turned my head inch by inch toward the window beside me. The fogged glass revealed nothing except vague shadows and streaks of moisture. Then a shape leaned closer from outside, not fast, not aggressive, slowly, like someone approaching a wounded animal. I saw the outline of a face first, too pale, too still, and then the hook appeared beside the window, dragging downward gently. Squeak, leaving a thin, wet line across the glass. The figure tilted its head slightly, almost curious, and in a calm voice barely louder than the rain had been earlier, spoke. "You should left sooner." Neither of us moved. I don't mean we froze for a second. I mean completely. Like our bodies had stopped belonging to us. The figure outside remained motionless beside my window, rainwater sliding slowly down the pale outline of its face. The hook rested against the glass with a soft metallic squeal that made my teeth hurt. Jason whispered, "What do we do?" I couldn't answer because the thing standing outside the car didn't feel real anymore. Not in a normal way. Its face looked unfinished somehow. Too smooth in certain places, too hollow in others. One eye caught the weak parking light, while the other disappeared completely into shadow. And its smile, God, it wasn't wide. That would have been easier. It was small, tight, almost polite. Like someone trying very hard to appear harmless. The figure slowly stepped backward from the window, not turning away, just gliding back into the darkness while staring directly at us the entire time. Then it vanished beyond the rear of the car. Jason immediately grabbed the keys again. "Please start." The engine sputtered weakly, once, twice, then finally. The Chevy roared alive. Both of us gasped at the same time. "Go!" I screamed. Jason slammed the car into reverse. The tires spun violently on wet gravel. For one glorious second, I thought we were getting out. Then something hit the trunk hard. The entire car jolted. Jason cursed loudly. "What was that?" I twisted around instinctively toward the back windshield and saw him, the man, standing directly behind the car now, too close, one hand pressed flat against the trunk, the hook hanging loosely at his side. His face was clearer this time, middle-aged maybe, balding rainwater dripping from his forehead. His skin looked unnaturally pale beneath the yellow parking lights, almost gray in places. But it was the expression that made my stomach collapse. He looked disappointed, not angry, not violent. Just sad we were leaving. Jason hit the gas harder, the tires screamed. Gravel exploded behind us, the car lurched backward and died again. Silence. Pure silence. The man behind us didn't react, didn't rush forward, didn't even blink. He simply stood there, staring through the back windshield, like he already knew something we didn't. Jason's breathing became ragged. Why does it keep dying? I don't know. This car never does this. He hit the steering wheel hard enough to make the horn chirp, accidentally. The sound echoed across the empty overlook, then disappeared into the woods. And from somewhere deep in those trees, something answered. Not a scream, not an animal, more like distant metal striking metal, clang. Then silence again. Jason looked toward the woods immediately. So he's not alone. The words drained every bit of warmth from my body. Another clang echoed faintly through the darkness. Closer this time. Clang, clang, like someone dragging tools through the forest. The man behind the car smiled slightly wider. I grabbed Jason's arm hard enough to hurt him. "We need to lock the windows." "They are locked." "No, the windows." The passenger window beside me had lowered half an inch without me noticing. Just enough for cold night air to slip inside. And with it, that smell again. Wet soil, rust, rotting leaves. Jason rolled it up immediately. The motor groaned weakly. Halfway up. Dead. No. Jason hit the button repeatedly. Nothing, the opening remained there. Tiny. But enough, the man behind the car tilted his head slightly when he noticed it. Almost curious. Then he slowly lifted the hook. Not threateningly, carefully, like someone reaching toward a fragile object. I shrank back against the seat instantly. The curved metal slid toward the narrow opening in the glass. Squeak. The tip scraped lightly against the edge of the window. Jason suddenly threw open his door. I screamed. "What are you doing?" "I'm not sitting here waiting to die." Rain and cold air flooded the car as he stumbled out onto the gravel holding the tire iron from under his seat. "Hey!" he shouted. The man looked at him calmly. Jason pointed the tire iron with shaking hands. "Back the hell away from the car!" The figure remained silent, standing there under the weak yellow lights, rain dripping steadily from the hook. Jason took another step forward. I could hear the gravel crunch beneath his boots. "You hear me?" Still nothing. Then the man finally spoke quickly, almost kindly. "You shouldn't be here tonight." Jason swung the tire iron wildly toward him. The man stepped backward instantly into darkness. Fast, way too fast. 1 second he was there, the next gone. Jason froze, turning in circles now. Where'd he go? The woods around the overlook suddenly felt enormous. Black tree lines stretching endlessly in every direction. No nearby roads, no houses, no lights except the weak parking lamps buzzing overhead. One of them flickered violently, then died. Half the overlook vanished into darkness immediately. "Jason," I whispered, "get back in the car." He backed toward the Chevy slowly, gripping the tire iron tighter. His breathing sounded horrible now, wet, panicked. Then, crunch, footsteps behind him. Jason spun around violently. Nothing there. Another crunch. To his left this time, circling him, invisible in the dark. I suddenly realized what was happening. The man had never wanted inside the car. He wanted Jason outside of it. Jason, get back in. Too late. A shape burst from the darkness near the trees. Not running, lunging fast, silent, wrong. Jason barely raised the tire iron before the hook slammed against it. With a deafening metallic crack, clang, he stumbled backward hard against the Chevy. The figure moved unnaturally close now. I saw flashes only. Wet gray skin, dark hollow eyes. The curved hook swinging upward again. Jason screamed. Not brave anymore. Not tough. Just terrified. He yanked the passenger door open and practically fell back inside the car on top of me. Drive, drive, drive. I can't. The engine was dead again. Out. The man stood a few feet away now, completely still, the hook dangling at his side, and behind him, deep between the trees, more shapes were beginning to move slowly, one by one, watching us. The shapes in the trees weren't moving like normal people. That's the first thing my brain locked onto, not running, not walking. Just appearing closer each time the parking lights flickered. Closer, closer again, like the darkness itself was pushing them forward between frames. Jason slammed the door shut and locked it immediately. Click, click, click. His hands shook so badly. He dropped the keys into the space between the seats. Shit, shit, Jason, I got it. Outside the windshield, the man with the hook remained perfectly still beneath the rain, watching us waiting. The others stayed farther back near the woods, barely visible shapes, standing among the trees like broken shadows. I remember noticing stupid details even then. One of them looked too tall. Another seemed bent sideways unnaturally. One appeared completely motionless except for its head, slowly tilting, like an animal trying to understand us. Jason finally grabbed the keys again and jammed them into the ignition. The Chevy coughed violently. Dead. Again. No, no, no. He hit the steering wheel so hard the horn blasted. Honk. Instantly, every shape near the woods stopped moving. At the same time, like they were listening, the silence afterward felt alive. Jason lowered his voice immediately. Oh God. The man near the front of the car smiled faintly. Then he tapped the hook softly against the hood. Clink once, just enough to make us flinch. Then again. Clink slow but like he was knocking on a door. I grabbed Jason's sleeve. We need to run. Run where? The woods. Are you insane? Another flicker from the parking light. One of the shapes had moved closer. Now, standing near the driver's side rear door, I could finally see it clearly enough to realize something horrifying. It wasn't another person. It was a deer carcass hanging upside down from a tree branch. Its body twisted slightly in the wind. Jason noticed too. Oh my God! The hookman had positioned himself so we'd mistake it for someone standing there. Fear started changing shape inside me after that. Up until then, I thought we were dealing with a killer. Now it felt worse, because whoever he was playing with us. The hook scraped lightly across the hood again. Squeak, then stopped directly above my seat. The metal roof groaned softly. He was climbing onto the car, Jason whispered. Don't move. The ceiling bent inward slightly. Creak, a slow shifting weight moved above us. Every tiny sound became unbearable. The fabric of Jason's jacket brushing the seat, the ticking dashboard clock. Our breathing. Outside, rainwater dripped steadily from the trees. Drip, 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 then thump. The hook landed gently on the roof above my head, not stabbing downward, just resting there. I stared upward, unable to breathe. The curved metal slowly dragged across the roof. Tiny flakes of rust drifted down from the ceiling fabric. Jason looked like he was about to pass out. And then we heard something even worse. A second sound from underneath the car, like fingers dragging slowly across the gravel beneath us. I jerked my feet onto the seat instantly. Jason did the same. The sound moved under my side of the car, then stopped directly beneath us. Silence. My chest hurt from holding my breath. Then, tap a single knock beneath the floorboard. Tap again. Something was under the car. Jason finally snapped. "Get the hell away from US." He slammed his fist against the horn repeatedly. Honk! Honk! The figure above us suddenly moved. Fast, the weight shifted violently across the roof. Before either of us could react, the passenger side window exploded inward, crash. Glass sprayed across my lap. I screamed so hard my throat burned. The hook ripped through the opening wildly before disappearing back into darkness. Jason grabbed me instantly. Down. We ducked beneath the dashboard as shattered glass continued falling around us. Outside, footsteps circled the car rapidly now. Crunch, crunch, crunch. No longer patient, excited. The hook slammed against the rear windshield. Bang, again bang. Thin cracks spread through the glass. Jason looked completely broken now. Sweat pouring down his face. Eyes wide, barely breathing. Then the radio suddenly turned on by itself. Static blasted through the speakers, and beneath the static, very faint male voices, distorted, like an old recording playing underwater. Jason stared at the dashboard in horror. I turned that off. A voice emerged through the static, calm, almost cheerful. "Found another couple tonight. Don't run fast when they panic." More laughter, then silence. The radio died completely. My stomach collapsed. "These aren't broadcasts," I whispered. Jason slowly looked toward me, and we both realized the same thing at once. Someone was transmitting directly to the car. Outside, the hook scraped slowly down the windshield. A face lowered into view upside down above us, pressed against the cracked glass, pale skin, rainwater dripping sideways. That tiny polite smile, the man stared directly at me. Then he whispered through the broken window, "You opened the door first." Jason suddenly shoved the keys into the ignition one final time. The engine roared alive instantly. The hookman's smile vanished. "Go, go, go!" Jason slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The Chevy launched backward violently across the gravel overlook. The figure disappeared from the windshield. Something scraped horribly along the side of the car as we spun around toward the road. Metal shrieked against metal. Then we were moving fast. Trees blurred past us as the Impala fishtailed onto the wet highway. Jason gripped the wheel so tightly. His knuckles looked white under the dashboard lights. Neither of us spoke. The shattered passenger window blasted freezing rain into the car. For several seconds, Abby genuinely thought we escaped. Then I looked into the side mirror and saw headlights far behind us following. The headlights stayed behind us, far enough to disappear around curves, close enough to return every few seconds. Two pale lights cutting through rain and darkness following. Jason drove like a man trying to outrun a nightmare without admitting it was real. The Chevy rattled violently every time we hit potholes. Cold air screamed through the shattered passenger window, whipping my hair across my face while broken glass shifted around my feet. Neither of us spoke for almost a full minute, only breathing sharp. Unevin, wet with panic, the windshield wipers dragged back and forth frantically, thunk, 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 thunk. I kept staring into the side mirror. The headlights remained there, steady but taut, not gaining, not falling behind, just watching us from the highway. Jason finally whispered, "Tell me if they get closer." "They're still there." His jaw tightened. The road ahead stretched endlessly through black woods and empty farmland. No gas stations, no houses, nothing except wet asphalt reflecting pale moonlight through the clouds. Then the radio crackled again. Both of us jumped violently. Jason slammed it off instantly, but the voice still came through. Not from the radio. From somewhere outside, faint, distorted by rain and speed. "Slow down." I felt every hair on my arms rise at once. "Jason, I heard it. You'll crash." The voice sounded almost caring. That somehow made it worse. Jason pressed harder on the gas pedal. The speedometer climbed higher. 70, 71, 72. The old Impala began trembling dangerously. The headlights behind us suddenly vanished completely. I twisted around immediately. Nothing there now, just darkness swallowing the road behind us. Where'd they go? Jason looked in the mirror repeatedly. I don't know. Neither answer felt safe. Then the engine temperature warning light flickered red. Oh no, what? The car's overheating. Keep driving. I can't. Steam began curling faintly from beneath the hood. Jason cursed under his breath. We have to stop. No, we don't have a choice. The engine whined loudly, then kunk. The Chevy jerked violently before losing power. We rolled slowly onto the side of the empty highway dead. The silence afterward felt unbearable. No engine, no radio. Only rain striking metal, and the soft ticking of cooling machinery. Jason gripped the steering wheel without moving. I whispered, "Call someone." No signal. I checked mine too. Nothing, of course. Jason looked through the cracked windshield at the empty road ahead. Then behind us, still no headlights, no movement. Maybe they gave up. Maybe we'd finally escaped. That tiny hope lasted less than 10 seconds because something tapped gently against the trunk. Tap. Both of us froze instantly. Another tap. Slow, deliberate tap. Jason looked like he might throw up. No, the tapping moved along the side of the car. Tap, tap, tap toward my broken window. I slowly turned my head and saw him standing outside again, smiling. Rainwater dripped from his bald head, while the hook rested casually over one shoulder. His pale face looked almost peaceful beneath the moonlight, like he belonged out there, like the darkness recognized him. He leaned slightly toward the broken passenger window, close enough for me to smell wet earth and rust on his clothes. Then he spoke softly. You should have stayed parked. Jason suddenly threw open his door again with the tire iron raised. Get away from her! The man stepped backward calmly onto the wet road. Jason charged toward him screaming. The tire iron swung wildly through rain and hit nothing. The man moved aside effortlessly, almost gracefully. Jason slipped hard on the soaked pavement and crashed onto one knee with a cry of pain. The hook lowered slowly toward him. I scrambled out of the passenger side barefoot onto freezing asphalt. Stop! The man looked at me instead, and for the first time, that polite smile disappeared completely. His expression changed into something colder, disappointed, like we'd ruined something important. Far down the highway, another set of headlights suddenly appeared around the bend, bright fast. The hookman noticed them instantly. Jason crawled backward desperately across the wet pavement. The approaching vehicle blasted its horn loudly. Hon, un, kun, a truck. The hookman stepped away from us slowly. No panic, no rush. He simply stared one final time before backing toward the trees beside the road. And then he was gone, just swallowed by darkness between the pines. The truck driver screeched to a stop beside us moments later. A heavy-set older man wearing a Penn State hoodie jumped out yelling questions we could barely process. Jason kept repeating the same thing over and over. He was right there. He was right there. The police arrived 20 minutes later. State troopers searched the woods until nearly sunrise. Dogs, flashlights, radios crackling through rain. They found nothing. No footprints, no weapon, no escaped patient. Nothing except the damage to the car. And hanging from the passenger side door handle, they found this, a rusted metal hook, cold wet, still swinging slightly in the morning wind. The officers tried explaining it away afterward. Pranksters, drifters, somebody trying to scare teenagers. But none of them could explain the recording on Jason's old answering machine the next morning. A message had come in around 2:14 a.m. Right while we were trapped at the overlook. All it contained was static, rain, and the sound of metal slowly scraping against glass. Jason stopped sleeping after that. About 6 months later, he moved out west and changed his number. We never really talked again. Whatever happened that night hollowed something out inside him. As for me, AB still avoid back roads after dark, and I never park near tree lines anymore. But sometimes, late at night, when rain hits my car just softly enough, Maybe remember the way that man smiled through the broken window, polite, calm, pot, like he knew from the very beginning that eventually everyone opens the door for something. Stay safe out there, especially if you hear metal scraping outside your car when the road goes quiet, because sometimes old stories aren't stories at all.